Hey everybody! This is Music for Teaching, where we use music to teach music, and a lot of other things too. So do you ever wonder why people will sing using syllables like mi or do, mi, re, do? Well, they are practicing solmization. No. Salinization is the process where salt ends up in the soil, like at these salt flats in Death Valley, California. That's a topic for another time, though. Now get me out of here before it gets too hot. Solmization just means using some kind of symbol to represent musical notes, something that has been done for centuries. Here's an example of solmization from China. Here's one from Indonesia, India, and sometimes even numbers are used. Is there something similar about all of these examples? That's right. That's because they represent the notes of the scale. Now, a musical scale. When you put music notes in a specific order like this, we call it a scale. And you can then use these notes to make melodies and songs. You've all heard that one before. Now, not all scales are the same though, and not all have 7 notes. There are all types of scales out there, but we will be using the major scale today, which is common in what we call Western music. Well, that last note is the same note as the first one, but only higher. In this case, note C. We call this an octave. Basically, the scale is starting all over again. So we can label this note 1 also. 1 and 1. Now, what can we do with this scale is replace the note letters and the numbers with syllables called solfège syllables. Well, there are a bunch of reasons. These syllables are quite singable and are used by singers to easily learn new melodies. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. They just roll off the tongue. Well, solfège is a great tool for all musicians to help them learn melodies, understand how notes relate to one another, and see and hear patterns in music. Because when it comes down to it, if you play an instrument, you are just using an object to sing a song instead of using your voice. Now let's get out of this room and do a little call and response singing to get to know these solfège syllables.
Do, re, do, re, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, fa. Mi, re, mi, re, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, do. Do, re, do, mi, do, fa, do, so, do, fa, do, mi, do, re, mi, fa, so, do, re, mi, fa, so. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, do, fa, mi, fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, so, fa, mi, re, so, re, so, do, re, so, mi, so, fa, so, do, so, fa, mi, re, 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 do, so, do.
They sang pretty well, didn't they? So did you notice anything different about the scale I showed on the screen and the syllables you sang? Well, that's because they were different. The scale I showed you was the C scale, but the scale of the song we just sang was the G scale. Well, that's the beauty of solfège. We are using the movable do system. That means we can move do to any scale we want, and the syllables stay the same. That's because the pattern of notes stays the same. Well, that is a good question. There's some very complicated music out there, and it may not use traditional scales like the major scale. So a lot of people use what's called the fixed Do system. That means that note C is always Do, and note D is always Re, and so forth. So a piece of music like this, which has no traditional key, can be sung using solfège. Well, yes, since we are so used to hearing traditional scales, it sounds weird to me and you, but to someone else, it might sound beautiful. But since we are just learning to sing using solfège, and our melodies are pretty simple, let's stick with the movable Do system. All right, let's sing one more song, but this time we will sing the whole scale. And don't worry, these syllables are tricky at first, but like anything new, if you keep at it, you'll know them in no time.
Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Sol, la, ti, do. Sol, la, ti, do. Sol, sol, la, ti, do. Sol, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol. Do, ti, la, sol. Do, do, ti, la, sol. Do, do, ti, la, sol. Do, ti, la, sol. Fa, mi, re, do. Do, ti, la, sol. Fa, mi, re, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, 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 do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, 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 do. Do, mi, sol, do, sol, mi, do. Do, mi, sol, do, sol, mi, do. Do, mi, sol, do. Do, mi, sol, do. Do, mi, sol, do. Do, mi, sol, do. Do, sol, mi, do. Do, sol, mi, do. Do, sol, mi, do. Do, sol, mi, do.
All right, everybody, it's time to see what you learned from the video. Go ahead and get a pencil and paper and write down your answers, and you can check your answers in the description. Here we go. Number 1. What is the general term for using symbols to represent notes when singing? A. Salinization. B. Solmization. C. Salmonella. D. Vocalization. Number 2. What are syllables such as do, re, mi, fa, sol known as? A. Solfège syllables. B. Solmize syllables. C. Singing syllables. Or D. Vocalization syllables. Number 3. How many different note letters are in a major scale? A. 5. B. 6. C. 7. D. 8. Number 4. What is it called when you have a high and low version of the same note? A. System. B. Octave. C. Tritone. D. Solfège. Number 5. Why do musicians use solfège? A. It helps to learn melodies quicker and easier. B. It makes it easier to see patterns in music. C. It helps our understanding of how notes relate to each other. Or D. All of the above. Number 6. In what type of solfège can the syllable do be attached to the first note of any scale? A. Fixed do. B. Scalable do. C. Movable do. D. Attachable do. Number 7. In what type of solfège is the syllable do always note C? A. Fixed do. B. Scalable do. C. Movable do. D. Attachable do. And number 8. Which example demonstrates notes going upward? A. Mi, fa, sol, la, ti. B. Ti, la, sol, fa. C. Mi, re, do, do. D. Sol, fa, mi, re, do. All right, that does it for our little check for understanding. Go ahead and check your answers, and we'll see you on the next one.